During a routine inspection at a bicycle factory, a quality control officer noted that 6 bikes out of a sample of 50 were defective. At this rate, how many of the 1,500 bikes produced weekly are likely to be defective? The easiest way to do this is to set up a proportion. So we know that 6 bikes out of 50 defective. And what we want to know is how many bikes X out of the 1,500 will be defective on a weekly basis. We set up the proportion like that, and then we cross multiply. So we get 50x equals 6 times 1,500, which is 9,000. Then we divide both sides by 50 to get x equals 180. What is the perimeter of the following shape to the nearest ones? In this case, the question is asking for the perimeter. Now the perimeter is the distance around the outside edge of the shape. And as you can see, we know 4 of the 5 sides. To find the 5th side, the easiest way to do it is to treat it like a right triangle. We'll call this side C, side A, this side B. And we can use Pythagorean theorem to find C. So the Pythagorean theorem says C squared equals A squared plus B squared. Now, B is this distance here. We know the entire distance here is 10 centimeters. And we know that this is 6 centimeters, so we know that this is 4. Likewise, we know that this is 4 because the entire distance is 10 and this is 6. So we know that C squared equals 4 squared plus 4 squared, which is 16 plus 16 or 32. So we know that C equals the square root of 32. Now in the TEAS exam, they will give you an on-screen calculator. So if you use that, you'll know that the answer is about 5.7 for that side. Now if we find the entire perimeter, we just add all the 5 sides together. So we get 10 plus 10 plus 6, 6 plus 6 plus 5.7, which is equal to 10, 20, 32, 37.7, which is approximately 38 centimeters, which was answer D. Boyle's law states that the pressure and volume of a gas are indirectly proportional when the temperature and number of moles of gas are kept constant. Which of the following is the correct equation? The key to this question is not what Boyle's law is, but the fact that it says that Boyle's law is an indirect proportional relationship. There's 2 types of relationships that we can talk about, directly proportional and indirectly proportional. In a directly proportional relationship, you can see a graph of that looking like this. As X increases, Y increases. An equation of that relationship may look like this. X over Y equals a constant K. In an indirect relationship, you get a graph that looks more like this. An equation that looks like this. X times Y equals K. So as X increases, Y decreases. If we look at the examples that were given for this equation, the first one was P over V, and the second one was P times V. In this case, the P over V is a direct relationship, where the P times V is an indirect relationship. And since we're looking for an indirect proportional relationship, the second equation where P1V1 equals P2V2 is the correct answer. What is the diameter of a swimming pool with a circumference of 64 feet? First of all, we need to look at what circumference means. Circumference is the distance around a circle. And the formula for circumference is C equals pi d, where d is the diameter. To solve for d, we simply divide both sides of the equation by pi. So we get C over pi equals d, which equals 64 feet divided by pi, which is 3.14. And using the calculator provided for you on the test, you get the answer of 20.38. If a hospital hires administrators, nurses, and doctors in a ratio of 2 to 6 to 1, how many nurses should it hire if it has 25 doctors? First off, the question tells us that they hire in a ratio of 2 to 6 to 1 for administrators to nurses to doctors. You'll also notice that the question only mentions nurses and doctors, so we don't have to worry about the administrators and the administrator ratio. The ratio of nurses to doctors is given as 6 to 1. Now if we cross multiply that, we can solve for n. So we get n times 1, or n, equals d times 6. So the number of nurses equals number of doctors, which is 25, times 6, which is 150. And that's the correct answer for the number of nurses for 25 doctors. What is the area of a kite with a vertical diagonal of 3 feet and a horizontal diagonal of 2.5 feet? First thing we would do is draw a diagram of the kite. A kite is actually a diamond or a rhombus. In this case, it's got a horizontal diagonal of 2.5 feet and a vertical diagonal of 3 feet. Now the formula for an area of a rhombus is d1 times d2 divided by 2. In this case, d1 is 3, d2 is 2.5, and we divide that by 2, which would be 7.5 divided by 2, which equals 3.75 square feet. That's the answer for the area of this kite. A student buys a new cell phone for $1,200. If the phone completely loses its value in 4 years at a constant rate, which of the following equations correctly represents the value v of the phone at any time t in years? The easiest way to solve this problem is by representing it on a graph where you have v on the y-axis and t for time on the x-axis. We know at the beginning the value of the phone is 1200, and by the time of 4 years, we know that the value is 0. Now the equation of the line is y equals mx plus b, where b is the y-intercept, in this case where it crosses the y-axis, or 1200, and m is the slope, which is simply the change in y over the change in x, or in this case, y goes from 1200 to 0, and x goes from 0 to 4. So we know that's equal 1200 minus 4, which is minus 300. And we know that the equation then is y equals minus 300t plus 1200. If a rectangle has a width that is 5 more than the length, and the length is x, what is the expression for the area of the rectangle? We know the formula for an area of a rectangle is area equals length times width. In this case, they tell us that the length is x, and the width is the length plus 5, or x plus 5. If we substitute that into the formula for area, we get area equals x times x plus 5, which is the answer. Use the following chart to determine which breakfast cereals are priced below or equal to 25 cents an ounce. Check all that apply. To solve this problem, simply look at the price per box divided by the ounces per box. In this case, we divide 550 by 28 and we get 0.196. 490 divided by 18, we get 0.272. 578 divided by 20, we get 0.289. And 625 divided by 25, we get 0.25. Since the question asks which of these are priced below or equal to 0.25, we can identify that Happy Oats and PBJ Puffs are the correct answers. Complete the following chart by matching the correct equivalent values of fractions and decimals. Fractions should be in reduced form. To solve this question, we essentially have to determine what the decimal equivalents of these four values are. So if we start at the bottom one, 16 divided by 100, the easiest way to look at that is to move the decimal point 2 places to the left and get 0.16, which gives us that answer. This next one, 1 3/4, we know that 3/4 is 0.75, so 1 3/4 is 1.75, which takes care of that one. Now 1/5, we should know that that equals 0.20, or we can use the calculator or divide 5 into 1 to get 0.20, which takes care of that one. And the final answer we know just by elimination is the 0.71, but we could also divide 7 into 5 to get the 0.71 answer. So we know that that is 0.71, and therefore we know all the answers.